Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of EAFC Tactical. Since there are no new card pools or players in the game this week, we'll take this opportunity to discuss other topics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the top strikers in the game right now, who is the strongest and who is the most user-friendly. This will lead us into related discussions. What makes a good striker? What attributes are essential for a striker? Which traits are most beneficial? Let's dive straight into the topic and look at the current striker rankings. Here is the current ranking of strikers. You might have seen this chart in previous videos. If you haven't seen those videos, I'll briefly introduce the main content of this chart. If you are already familiar with it, feel free to skip to the latter part of the video. The leftmost part shows basic player information, including rank, avatar, name, color type, positions, etc. The middle part details the main trait of the player. Note that sub-traits of regular players are not included in the calculations, as they can be freely removed or learned. The main traits section includes trait categories and effect values, but trait names and descriptions are omitted to save space and increase information density. On the right are skill details. Since this is a score rank chart, it includes all types of shooting, volley, and header, and rankings for individual skills will also be listed later. The most important skills for the score rank are S or SS level skills, but level skills are also included for more information, although they can be disregarded for score rank purposes. If an S or SS skill is the main skill, usually 260 or 235 momentum, it is highlighted in green. There are 4 columns for skill power, with the 4th column being the most straightforward, as it already includes all main traits. If you want to see the values with only one main trait, look at the 2nd or 3rd column, while the 1st column shows values without any trait effects. Additionally, there's a green number column showing additional power gained when facing an attribute counter, like Cantona's shooting power against speed attribute goalkeepers, which is 42.8 plus 4.9 equals 47.7k. The bar graph next to the values visually represents the power level. If you're interested in the calculation rules for skill power, they consider the maximum buildable ability, including player level 60, trait level 10, skill level 10, and revolution level 4. Strength and attribute, SA, is also factored in, as different SA plans can affect player ability values. The values used are generic and cover various possibilities, meaning that in most cases, player abilities won't exceed these calculated values. Specific SA values are not detailed here. Good at and very good at for low ball and high ball have been incorporated using an approximate algorithm, good at 7.5% and very good at 12.5% ability calculations, which will be recalculated with more data, but currently, they are quite close to actual values and are useful for reference. Let's look at the top 5 strikers in the ranking. We'll compare their abilities on the same skill power radar chart for a direct comparison. The radar chart, similar to the stats radar chart, includes skill power data, considering skill momentum, trait, SA, etc., and is consistent with the ranking data. The defensive data shown includes guess right bonuses, making it more practical. Cantona, represented in blue on the radar chart, is not only the highest in score power but also has the highest dribble and pass abilities, reaching around 35k. This offensive breakthrough ability is quite formidable. Cantona's strengths include his S trait, the strongest offensive trait attaching 3rd, with the highest SSS level 6% boost to all offensive abilities. His A trait further enhances shooting power against defenders who choose to block. His SS shooting skill also has the distance reduction effect, which is constantly active, significantly increasing his threat distance, especially against same attribute and speed attribute goalkeepers. Cantona is a perfect striker with full offensive capabilities and is currently the strongest in the game. His only downside is that his main position is CF and not ST, which means in many formations, he won't get a 10% stamina bonus. However, his inherent stamina of 1354 is also quite substantial. Cantona is definitely worth all your resources for building, and if you have 3 S-level attaching 3rd traits for him, he becomes invincible. Next is Sun, represented in orange on the radar chart. Sun's offensive abilities are slightly lower than Cantona's, around 32k. This is mainly because Sun's S trait, Penalty Master, is perfectly covered by the attaching third area. Its biggest flaw is not boosting offensive guessing abilities outside the penalty area, and shooting power reaches its maximum only inside the penalty box. Sun's A trait, support from MF, is also relatively weak. To utilize this trait effectively, he must bypass the central defenders and run into the penalty box to shoot. If he enters a duel earlier, he only benefits from one command. Sun's offensive ability of 32k already includes this boost, and while he generally gets this advantage, in some cases, like when he receives a pass from RW or LW, he doesn't get the boost. Another issue with Sun is even more severe than Cantona's. His main positions are LW, which are relatively far from the goal. Therefore, overall, while Sun's shooting ability is strong, the player's design is not very good. If I were to rate him, I'd only give him 4 stars. Drogba, previously discussed in detail, will be briefly covered here. Drogba, shown in green on the radar chart, has general offensive abilities around 30k, with only his shooting standing out. Drogba is the game's first player with an SS header. All his traits are designed to boost header power, resulting in his other abilities being ordinary. As discussed before, headers and volleys have their unique issues. The most crucial drawback for aerial shooters is the game mechanics where all self-passes in the penalty area are low balls. This is a fatal flaw for aerial shooters, requiring a wasted trait slot for a high baller, or else you give up on self-pass attacking modes. Whether 1-2s in the penalty area or receiving a teammate's pass results in a high or low ball is entirely random. Another important point is that the game currently offers the 6% ability boosting low ball lover trait. If you have 3 of these, the low ball power boost exceeds that of shooting. Although headers have 2 S traits for boosting, they are only available on regular players from the 2023 version, currently unattainable in the game. Additionally, whether for low or high balls, if your attack mode relies on teammate passes, ensure your teammates are equipped with low baller or high baller, especially for aerial shooters. I previously rated Drogba 4 stars, which I believe is accurate. Apart from headers, his abilities are average, and headers aren't that easy to use. Also, his stamina is a bit on the lower side. Next, the 4th in score rank is Power Type Haaland, shown in red on the radar chart. His dribbling ability also reaches 35k, similar to Cantona's, but his passing is just over 25k, a significant weakness. This version of Haaland is one of the game's early players. The card's design isn't particularly good. The main trait's 6% boost only applies against catching goalkeepers, and most goalkeepers in the game are punch types. Although his shooting power is sufficient against punching goalkeepers, a different trait could have made him stronger. The A-level trait also only enhances dribbling. Let's discuss the pros and cons of such players with obvious weaknesses. The advantage is clear, and near 35k dribbling is impressive, allowing him to bully some defenders. However, the downside is when facing defenders with strong tackling, his pass or 1-2 can be bullied. This is why bullying ability is more important than guessing ability in the game. Defenders can easily purchase duelists to boost guessing ability, but guessing correctly is a must for bullying ability. Players like Haaland with obvious weaknesses can be bullied without guessing correctly. If I were to rate this Haaland, I could only give him 4 stars. Next, the 5th in score rank is the speed type of Haaland, shown in purple on the radar chart. Note that this is not an SS player but a standard S player. Hence, his offensive abilities are significantly lower than other SS players. Speed Haaland's traits and main skill are all tailored for volleys, achieving a remarkable 41.2k power for an S player. However, his offensive abilities are very weak. He doesn't have the dribble bullying ability of Power Type Haaland, and his pass and 1-2 are easily bullied by strong tackling. Nevertheless, volleys are quite easy to use and consistent, so I would still give him 4 stars. Since we've discussed ground shooters, headers, and volleyers, let's now talk about the advantages and disadvantages of ground shooters and aerial shooters. I've just covered the comparison between volleys and headers. Now let's focus on the differences between ground and aerial shooters. The most obvious advantage of ground shooters is their effectiveness in auto mode, which is nearly impossible for aerial shooters. We'll focus more on the pros and cons in manual mode. For ground shooters, the main advantage is simplicity. After winning a matchup or receiving an overhead pass from a teammate, they can directly use their special move, while aerial shooters need extra operations to use their strongest skill. Therefore, the player's breakthrough ability is more important for ground shooters. Winning a duel against a defender allows them to directly face the goalkeeper. For volleyers, it's somewhat similar, just requiring an additional self-pass operation in the penalty area. Headers, to achieve the same attack mode, must reserve a sub-trait for high ballers. The main advantage of aerial shooters is the ability to shoot directly after receiving the ball in the penalty area, crucial for set pieces, including corner kicks. If a ground shooter receives the ball in the penalty area and enters a duel, they'll likely lose possession, as trapping has no skill and is easily bullied by blocking or intercepting. Aerial shooters can rely more on their teammates' offensive abilities, conserving stamina. Another advantage is avoiding anti-shoot traits. Although anti-low ball and anti-high ball traits exist, anti-shoot is much more common, especially for defenders and goalkeepers. Remember, to maximize aerial shooters' advantages, teammates must have low baller or high baller traits. Let's look at the 6th to 10th ranked shooters in the score rank. For comparison, we'll include Cantona, the strongest shooter, in the radar chart as a reference. Griezmann, in orange on the radar chart, matches Cantona's offensive abilities, both around 35k. Griezmann, previously detailed in another video, is the game's first low-ball shooter with top-notch offensive breakthrough abilities, near 35k in dribble and pass or 1-2, although only against DS. But even against other positions, he's not weak at around 33k. With an additional ability boost against blocking at 43.3k, Griezmann's utility as an aerial shooter is significant. Just direct passes from teammates suffice, without fear of defenders blocking. He's a perfect 5-star striker. Next is the 7th-ranked speed type Mbappe, in green on the radar chart. His offensive abilities are not as outstanding, around 30k, mainly because his S trait, Duelist, only strengthens guessing abilities. Despite this, his defensive capabilities are relatively strong among strikers, although his interception is still weak. Speed Mbappe, as previously discussed, is not a favorite version of mine. This is because Duelist only boosts guessing, not bullying, which is more critical for a forward. While Duelist can greatly enhance defense, its effectiveness is limited by Mbappe's poor stats distribution, particularly low interception. The A-level trait focusing only on power-type opponents and his main position as LW further limit his effectiveness. I previously rated him 4 stars and maintain that rating after comparing him with other strikers. Next, another version of Mbappe, the power type, in red on the radar chart, has stronger dribbling and more balanced passing abilities, unlike Haaland's significant weakness. I really like the design of this version of Mbappe. His S main trait, Invincible Extension, is functional and reaches 37.5% at SSS level, while the typical SS level is 30%. This trait can change gameplay tactics, allowing Mbappe to duel from a farther distance and use the longer invincible time to rush towards the goal for shooting. Although his offensive abilities aren't top-notch, nearly 33k dribbling is still decent. His A-level trait, Enhancing Ability Against Blocking, is also reasonable. As an early game card with gameplay-altering design, despite not boosting abilities, it's very strong. I'd rate him between 4 and 5 stars, hoping for more game-changing players in the future to add variety to the game. Then we have Leo, 9th in rank, in purple on the radar chart. Leo's offensive abilities are very strong, especially with over 35k in dribbling and over 30k in passing. His main difference from other strikers is his positions, only LW or LM, without ST or CF. This means he always has a harder time getting into good shooting positions. As a LW, offensive breakthrough ability is crucial, and Leo has 35.4k in dribbling and 32.3k in pass or 1-2, posing a significant threat, especially with dribble bullying. Don't forget his S trait, Critical Connoisseur, which increases critical occurrences, greatly aiding him. As a LW, he's more than qualified, especially with his 39k SS shooting, reliable for critical moments. Although I haven't researched it, Leo is undoubtedly one of the strongest LWs in the game. I'd give him 5 stars, and we'll discuss top LW and RW players in the future. Technique type Holland, 10th in rank, shown in brown on the radar chart, has almost 35k in dribbling but weaker in passing. This version of Holland, also covered in a previous video, is like a power type Holland with strong dribbling and decent shooting. Overall, my impression of him is similar to the power type Holland. I previously gave him a 4-star rating, which seems appropriate as his overall capabilities are slightly below SS players. Now, let's briefly look at shooters ranked 11th to 15th on the score rank. To compare, we continue to include Cantona in the radar chart as a benchmark. These strikers' offensive abilities are notably less than Cantona's. Let's start with Osimhen, represented in orange on the radar chart. His offensive abilities are quite decent, with stronger dribbling capabilities. Osimhen, an early game player and not an SS, likely has a low appearance rate. I find him to be a decent player. With an S trait of attacking third and an A-level trait of high ball lover boosting by 4.2%, this A-level trait is excellent, offering strong scoring ability and offensive power. Like Drogba, he is a header with slightly lower power but stronger offensive abilities. I'd rate him between 3 to 4 stars. Next is Benzema, represented in green. His offense isn't prominent, but his defense is strong, thanks to Duelist. He's one of the game's earliest SS players. Though his S trait is Duelist, his offensive abilities are still acceptable, with dribble and pass around 32k. His most impressive aspect is his interception capability of 31.3k, quite strong for a forward. His shooting power of 38.6k is still sufficient for scoring, though weaker compared to later SS shooters. The A-level trait, low ball lover, is somewhat nonsensical and barely useful. His main position as CF is also a slight disadvantage. As an older SS shooter comparable to current S shooters, I feel a 4-star rating is appropriate. Then there's Crespo, in red on the radar chart. He's another S header with all traits boosting header power, reaching a power of 38.5k. His other offensive capabilities are average, and his stamina is on the lower side. I find him usable, but if he were my main ST, I might be reluctant to invest all my resources in him. A 3 to 4 star rating seems fitting. Lewan is similar to Crespo with header traits and comparable abilities. His main advantage is the A trait, providing an extra boost against blocking, slightly enhancing his applicability. Overall, he's very close to Crespo, mainly depending on the opponent goalkeeper's attributes. Piero, one of the earliest icon players, stands out as an MF, primarily a CAM, and can play CF but is still quite far from the goal. His S trait, full power gauge up, is practically useless in the current game mechanics. His A trait slightly enhances dribbling, and his SS shoot, although with a promising effect, only activates inside the penalty with an 18.8% chance. Hence, Piero is just an average offensive player, and I'd give him a 3-star rating. Finally, let's briefly cover ranks 16 to 20. Using Cantona as a benchmark, these strikers also fall short. Starting with Kane, a high ball aerial shooter with both traits enhancing headers, he has considerable power but average offensive abilities. He's most suitable for a 3-star rating. Haller has a design almost identical to Kane, but with even weaker pass and 1-2 abilities. Vlahovic, a typical ST ground shooter, has traits only boosting shooting and average guessing abilities, fitting a 3-star level. Morata, a low ball aerial shooter, has traits boosting volleying and decent offensive abilities, also deserving a 3-star rating. The 20th ranked player marks the first appearance of a regular player, reflecting their role in the game as weaker than premium/icon players, primarily serving as trait and skill materials. This Holland, in brown, has typical Holland abilities with strong dribbling but weak passing. As a regular player, he lacks build value, even though his abilities seem strong. To summarize, the top 20 strikers provide a good understanding of the game's elite shooters. The discussion also touched on what traits benefit strikers, the pros and cons of ground and aerial shooters, and the differences between low ball and high ball shooters. Additionally, ranks 21 to 40 are listed but not detailed, as many have appeared in previous videos and are similar in design to others, just with numerical differences. What strikers are you using, and are you satisfied with their performance? Which strikers are you hoping to acquire? Feel free to discuss in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.